Hello, everyone, and welcome to the YouTube channel for Enchanted Vibes, Spiritual Readings, and Wellness. My name is Queen T, and I am the creator of Enchanted Vibes and the co-owner of Vibe and High. In this video, I will share a few basics of how I learned to dramatically change how I was reading tarot. This is not my entire process. It's just a little snippet, and I will have other videos in the future that will go over every card and explain how I read them. The most important thing to remember is that tarot should be mostly intuitive. Memorizing different meanings will likely turn you off to the entire process and cause you a lot of stress. And also, every deck has its own imagery. So the same card may mean something in one deck and then something a little different in the next deck. For example, the imagery. This is the same card, it's the Empress, but the imagery in these two cards is vastly different. This is the general deck, which most people use, especially when starting out. Most books written about tarot, if they don't have pictures that include the card, they are likely talking about this, and especially if you're online, they're likely talking about this particular deck, and you all know what that deck is. This deck is more centered around my specific religious belief and my specific life path. So the stories and the imagery in this relate a lot differently than the other one. So it also matters who I'm reading for. If I'm doing a general reading for someone who knows absolutely nothing about tarot and is not of African descent, I am going to use this deck. If I pulled out this card, they're going to be a little mystified by this, because this looks like a fool, and this, you don't know why this is a fool card, but I know why this is the fool card based on the story behind it. And if I explain the story, a lot of people of African descent, especially if they are of the same type of practice that I am, they will understand that a lot better than this card. So it really just depends on who I'm reading for, which deck I will pull from, because the imagery will make a lot more sense in some of those. I highly encourage you to find a deck where the imagery speaks to you, because if you're going to read intuitively, you want to be able to look at the card and know, just by looking at that card, you want to be able to read it without filtering through the book. Especially this deck. This book is very small, and the descriptions in each one are very, very small. Whereas this deck, there are pages, whole pages dedicated to the one card. That's the backstory, and then the explanation is definitely a little bit more in depth, and it also has solutions in it, or advice. So that matters based on the type of reading that you're doing. So you want to make sure that the deck that you pick really resonates with you. Also, if there's a reverse distinction in this deck, a card coming out this way or coming out this way means something completely different. In this deck, doesn't matter which way the card comes out, it still means the same thing. So that's also something that you want to make sure that you are aware of. Aside from the cards themselves, the spread you are using and the question you are asking is something to consider. At the back of this booklet, there is a Celtic cross spread, and it uses 10 cards. At the back of this booklet, there is a 5-card spread, and the 5th card, each card represents something, same as the other one. And then the 5th card, you have to calculate the number based on the sum of the other cards and add the 2 digits together, and that will give you the card that you're supposed to pull. So that matters. Typically, I personally do a 3 card divination every day. I do it 3 times a day. I do it in the morning for general guidance throughout the day. I do it in the afternoon to see if there's anything that I need to be aware of that's coming that may have changed, because our actions change the course of the day. Um, and then I do one at night as just a general, either I either usually get a summary of my day sometimes, or I'll get a general message, like a general, hey, this is coming, so be aware type situation. Most people use the 3 card spread as a past, present, future reading, and that's totally fine. I have done that. That's just not how I do it when I do it on my daily basis. Once I pull all 3 cards, I read them as a complete analysis of all the possibilities of my day. And I do use this deck because it comes with advice and solutions. When I do my first one in the morning, when I do my afternoon one, I use this deck just to make sure that I'm clearing up anything. And then at night, I do it again and I go back to this deck, because then it'll give me advice going forward. So, it is also worth noting that oracle cards and playing cards are not the same as tarot. And with playing cards, you're basically using cartomancy, and you can apply some of the foundations of cartomancy to tarot. It's not the focal point of tarot, like for playing cards. Playing cards don't have any pictures, so there's nothing to intuitively read. The number and the suit is the most important thing, and how many times you see that number, and all that is the entire basis of reading playing cards. With tarot, you have pictures, and so the pictures matter as well as the number, but the picture is the overwhelmingly more important part. With oracle cards describe the big energy of the reading. So you would pull an oracle card and it will tell you the overall reasoning, the overall situation. And then you would use the tarot cards to go more in depth and get deeper answers and solutions to what it is that whatever the subject is of the reading. Tarot is not everyone's gift. I certainly didn't think it was mine. My ancestors made that known to me. I honestly thought I was just good at picking out valuable parts of information and putting them together. And that's why it made sense to me. Then I had to read for other people as a part of my studies into African spirituality, and that was weird. The first time I was terrified, and I've done it a few more times, and I'm still like, every time I'm like, ooh, I hope this resonated. Did this resonate with you? Like, that's the most common phrase in our chat when we read for each other is, does that resonate? Or I hope that resonated. Because one of us could be off. And anytime, if your spirit isn't clear when you're reading, then that could affect the reading itself. And sometimes it's the other person, if they're right in front of you. There could be reasons why the spirits aren't showing up, or they aren't guiding the reading like they could be, but that is a whole other video that we'll have to talk about. And you have to have some level of critical thinking. Reading cards individually is one thing, and you could look at the book as long as you need to understand a card on its own, but to get them together and understand the overall reading, especially when you're doing more than 3 cards, is a lot. So you really have to spend time with your deck to understand those meanings. You have to read for yourself daily. Like I said, I try to do at least 3 times a day where I read for myself with tarot. I do use other forms of divination as well. For yes or no questions, I don't use any cards. I use my cowries or my OB. I do not use tarot for yes or no questions, because that's a whole other way to know things, and I don't want to do that. It's a whole other way to memorize the deck, and I'd rather have a clear answer. Yes, no, there are maybes in there, but I know how to work around that or figure those out. But doing yes or no questions with tarot is a lot. So I would highly advise you to find another form of divination for yes and no questions. And make sure that whatever spirits walk with you, that you are venerating them properly, whatever that means for you. Whether that means leaving them food offerings, giving them water, giving them libations, talking to them, whatever that means for you, make sure that you are doing that on a regular basis, daily. Prayers, all of that daily to them to make sure that they are with you when you do readings, especially if you're doing them for other people. And again, that's a whole other video. The biggest key that is to use your intuition or how you feel about the card and the imagery that speaks to you. The position based on the spread, if you're using one. There are books full of different spreads. They are all incredibly valuable in different ways. I don't recommend memorizing a bunch of different spreads. I use 3. I use the Celtic Cross spread occasionally. I use, for general advice, I'll use Celtic Cross spread just for, hey, what's happening? If I have a very specific question or desire, I will use this deck and I will use that 5-card spread, because the 5-card spread describes your blessings, the opposition to those blessings, the things that you need to do to overcome the opposition, and then the things you need to do in order to get those blessings, and then, general advice. And so it's very detailed, and so I only use that for very specific desires. And then the 3-card spread, I don't do it as future, past, and present. I just do a 3-card spread of my day. But there are untold amounts of other spreads. So there's books that will tell you how to use them. Just make sure that you read into what the spread means and what each card means, and then that will help you with your meaning. But I don't recommend memorizing all the spreads. But then, whether a card is upside down or not, all that stuff matters depending upon the deck. So again, spend time with your deck, definitely. And make sure that you're consistent in the message of your deck. You can't pull the 7 of Wands and say that this means conflict or opposition in one reading, and then turn around in the next reading and say that it means adoring fans or an audience or a performance, because those aren't the same thing. So you want to make sure that you are very consistent in your meanings. Another way to help you memorize something is, especially if you get this basic deck, buy 2 of them. And with one of them, circle things that stand out to you. So, for instance, in this card, you could circle the dog, you could circle the flower growing out of his hand, you could circle the ledge, you could circle anything in here that helps you memorize the meaning. And then you can, look in the book, see what it says, and see how that imagery relates to the meaning. And you could circle those things. And then in this little side white space, you can write down what this card means, or what you intuitively feel from this card just by looking at it. But you really have to sit with the card. You can't just say, oh, he's going to walk off the ledge. Like, there is a lot of imagery in these cards. So you really have to think about that as you're writing, what you really want this to mean, because it needs to mean the same thing all the time. So if you pull for yourself daily, multiple times per day if you can, with the deck that you wrote on, then you won't need the book. And as you see the card, the imagery will pop out at you because you circled it, and the words will pop out at you because you wrote them, and then eventually you'll get to the point to where you won't have to guess. So you'll be able to not use that deck and use your clean deck to read for other people and still get the same feeling from the card. So that's one way to kind of help you. Also write compliments and positive reinforcement and next steps to continue. So when you're doing a reading for someone else, so you do the reading and you tell them what's happening, and then what? You just let them go, or you're going to give them some advice. You do not, especially if the reading is negative, you do not want to leave them on doom and gloom. You just don't. So you should kind of tell them what they should do, give them advice, because you're possibly shaping the person's future every time you read for them. So you must give them a way to move forward in a positive way, especially if the reading is negative. Do not leave them on death, doom, and despair. A good reader can call someone out on their crap, because that's what these cards are going to do. If you have the gift, they're going to call people out on their crap. But you need to be able to give them solid advice on how to move forward in a good way. So this is the first of many videos about tarot that you are going to see on this channel, and I will go in depth about every card in both the standard deck and my other deck as well. And I will also be making my own deck here soon, and I will be posting videos that detail that process, and you'll get to see how I choose to interpret things in general. So that's going to be a process, because it's going to be all-inclusive, kind of. So make sure you like and subscribe to our channel, and follow Enchanted Vibes and Vibe and High on all social media platforms. And thank you for watching.